I never expected to become invisible in my own home. After 40 years of hard work, raising 3 children, and building what I thought was a strong family, I found myself sitting at the end of a dining table on Thanksgiving, watching my children orbit around each other's lives while I might as well have been a piece of furniture. "Dad, could you move down a bit? We need to make room for Melissa's new boyfriend," my daughter Catherine said, barely glancing at me as she rearranged the seating chart in her head. Catherine, my eldest at 38, had become the unofficial matriarch since my wife passed 5 years ago. She'd taken over holiday planning with military precision, treating my modest suburban Boston home as if it were her own property. "Of course," I mumbled, sliding my plate and water glass toward the cramped corner where the table met the wall. Nobody noticed how my hands trembled slightly. At 65, I wasn't feeble, but the constant dismissal from my own children had a way of making me feel ancient. My son Michael was engrossed in conversation with his wife about their recent trip to the Amalfi Coast. The hotel alone was $5,000 a night, but worth every penny, he boasted loud enough for everyone to hear. Michael had always been competitive, but since becoming a partner at his law firm, money had become his primary language. He measured worth in dollars, and by that metric, my modest pension from 40 years of teaching high school math didn't even register. My youngest, Eliza, was showing everyone photos of her new condo in Manhattan's Upper West Side. "The building has a doorman and a rooftop garden," she explained to Catherine's husband, who nodded with appropriate envy. Eliza worked in finance and had climbed the corporate ladder with remarkable speed. I was proud of her ambition, but somewhere along the way, she'd stopped calling, except when she needed something. "Dad," Michael said suddenly, noticing me for the first time since he'd arrived, "what's with the old Volvo still in the driveway? Don't tell me you're still driving that thing." Before I could answer, Catherine jumped in. "We've told him 100 times to get something safer. He just won't listen." "I like my car," I said quietly. "It runs perfectly fine." "It's embarrassing, Dad," Eliza chimed in. "What if clients saw me getting out of that thing when you dropped me off?" I wanted to point out that Eliza hadn't let me drive her anywhere in at least 8 years, but I just nodded and took another bite of turkey. The conversation drifted away from me again, flowing toward promotions and property values, private schools for the grandchildren I rarely saw, and vacation plans for places I'd never visit. I'd become the caretaker of memories no one wanted to revisit. Their mother's garden, that I still maintained, the marks on the wall tracking their heights as they grew, the family albums gathering dust on shelves. As the dessert plates were cleared, Catherine pulled me aside in the kitchen. "Dad, we've been talking," she began, her voice dropping into what I recognized as her handling dad tone. "The house is really too big for just you. We think it might be time to consider something more manageable." The translation wasn't hard to decipher. The property values in our neighborhood had skyrocketed in recent years. My modest home, bought on a teacher's salary decades ago, was now worth well over $1 million. They saw an asset going to waste. "I'm quite comfortable here," I replied, trying to keep my voice even. "It's not about comfort, Dad. It's about practicality," Catherine insisted. "Michael knows a great retirement community in Providence. I'm not moving to Rhode Island." Catherine sighed with the exaggerated patience of someone dealing with an unreasonable child. "We're just trying to help you plan for the future." As we rejoined the others, my phone buzzed in my pocket. The name on the screen made me smile for the first time that day, Warren Carlyle. I excused myself, though no one seemed to notice, and stepped onto the back porch. "Happy Thanksgiving, old friend," Warren's familiar voice boomed through the phone. "How's the family gathering going?" I glanced through the window at my children, laughing and talking without me. "About as expected. How's Paris?" "Cold, beautiful, and overpriced," he chuckled. "Listen, I've got news. I'm flying back tomorrow. The deal's coming together faster than we anticipated. Are you still in?" I took a deep breath of the crisp November air. "I'm in." "Good man. This is going to change everything, Thomas. See you on Sunday. We've got work to do." As I hung up, I didn't realize Michael had come outside until he spoke behind me. "Work? Don't tell me you're thinking of substitute teaching again. Catherine told us about the retirement home options. It's the sensible choice, Dad. I slipped my phone back into my pocket, feeling a strange calm settle over me. We'll see what makes sense after the holidays, I said, walking past him into the house. Little did they know that Sunday would bring a visitor who would shatter the image they had of their ordinary, dispensable father, and nothing would ever be the same again. The Sunday brunch was Catherine's idea. Just family, she'd insisted over the phone on Friday. We need to continue our discussion about your future. But what she meant was my house, my assets, my remaining years to be managed like a problematic portfolio. I didn't argue. For once, I wanted them all there. My children arrived precisely at 11, bringing the whirlwind of their importance with them. Catherine immediately took over my kitchen, critiquing the age of my appliances while arranging the bagels she'd brought from an artisanal bakery across town. Michael settled at the dining table, spreading financial brochures for retirement communities like a dealer at a casino. His wife, Jessica, kept the children occupied with tablets and headphones. Heaven forbid they should have to interact with their grandfather without digital mediation. Eliza arrived last, speaking loudly into her AirPods about market projections. She kissed the air near my cheek without breaking her conversation, then helped herself to coffee. Dad, we found 3 excellent options, Michael began without preamble, all with top-tier healthcare facilities on premises. The one in Providence has a shuttle to the symphony, Catherine added, as if that might sweeten the proposition of being shipped out of state. I nodded, watching the clock above the refrigerator. Let's discuss it after we eat. Catherine exchanged glances with Michael. We really should get this settled before the new year, Dad, for tax purposes. I was saved from responding by the doorbell. The sudden chime cut through the room, and I felt a small surge of satisfaction at the confusion on my children's faces. Are you expecting someone? Eliza asked, finally off her call. Yes, I said simply, rising from my chair. A business associate. My children's expressions ranged from puzzlement to concern as I walked to the front door. They'd long ago decided I had no business associates, just former colleagues from the high school who occasionally met for coffee to complain about arthritis and property taxes. I opened the door to Warren Carlyle, and even I was momentarily taken aback. Warren had always been impressive, but today he looked every inch the billionaire entrepreneur that he was. Cashmere coat, subtle designer scarf, and shoes that probably cost more than a month of my pension. His driver waited by a sleek black Bentley at the curb. Thomas, he grinned, embracing me with genuine warmth. Ready to shake things up? More than ready, I replied, leading him inside. The living room fell silent as Warren entered. I watched recognition dawn on my children's faces, first confusion, then shock. Warren Carlyle wasn't just successful. He was magazine cover successful, tech visionary successful, change the world successful. His latest venture in sustainable energy technology had made headlines globally. Everyone, I said into the silence, this is Warren Carlyle. Michael recovered first, practically leaping from his chair. Mr. Carlyle, what an honor. I've followed your work since your first IPO. Warren smiled politely, but didn't move to shake Michael's outstretched hand. Instead, he placed his hand firmly on my shoulder. Thomas has been telling me about you all. His children, right? I've been looking forward to meeting you. How do you... Catherine began, looking between Warren and me with undisguised confusion. Your father and I go way back, Warren said casually, accepting the coffee I offered him. MIT days. MIT, Eliza echoed, her voice rising an octave. Dad went to Northeastern. I cleared my throat. For my teaching degree, yes. I did my undergraduate work in mathematics at MIT, class of 81. Warren laughed at their stunned faces. Thomas was the genius. I was just the hustler with big ideas. But together, we were unstoppable in those days. I don't understand, Catherine said, looking increasingly distressed. Dad's a math teacher. One of the best, Warren agreed, which is exactly why I need him now. The algorithms for our new energy storage system aren't cooperating, and your father is the only person I trust to solve it." Michael stared at me as if seeing me for the first time. "You never told us you knew Warren Carlyle. You never asked about my college days," I replied evenly. "You were always more interested in telling me about your own achievements." Jessica, Michael's wife, leaned forward. "So you're consulting for Mr. Carlyle's company?" Warren exchanged a glance with me and I nodded slightly. It was time. "Not consulting," Warren corrected her. "He's my partner." The silence that followed was absolute. Even the grandchildren looked up from their devices, sensing the shift in the room's energy. "Partner," Eliza repeated faintly. "Full 50% stake in Carlyle Quantum Storage," Warren confirmed. "We signed the papers last month. Thomas has been working with my team remotely for over a year. The patent filing went through last week." "But," Michael began, then stopped, his expression a mixture of disbelief and calculation. I could almost see him running the numbers in his head, trying to grasp what 50% of a Warren Carlyle venture might be worth. "That's why I've been reluctant to discuss selling the house," I explained quietly. "Our prototype facility will be built just outside Boston. I'll need to be nearby." Catherine's face had gone pale. You're going into business? At your age?" Warren laughed, the sound filling my modest living room. "Catherine, your father isn't going into business. He's revolutionizing energy storage. The mathematics he's developed will change how the world uses power. We're just lucky he decided to come out of retirement for this." "Retirement?" I echoed, meeting Warren's eyes with amusement. "Is that what I was doing?" "Teaching was always your passion project," Warren replied, "but we both know where your genius truly lies." I watched my children struggle to reconcile the father they thought they knew, old, obsolete, in need of management, with this new reality. Their expressions shifted between shock, confusion, and something I hadn't seen directed at me in years: respect, tinged with uncertainty. The brochures for retirement communities lay forgotten on the table as Warren began explaining our project, his enthusiasm filling the room. For the first time in years, my children were listening in my house, not to each other, but to a story about their father they'd never bothered to discover, and we hadn't even told them about the IPO yet. The weeks following Warren's visit transformed my relationship with my children in ways both amusing and revealing. Suddenly they were calling daily. Their newfound attentiveness might have warmed my heart if it weren't so transparently connected to Warren's revelation. "Dad, I found those old albums you mentioned," Catherine said one afternoon, appearing at my door unannounced with a dusty box. "I thought we could go through them together. You could tell me more about your MIT days." I invited her in, hiding my smile as she examined my living room with new eyes, noting the complex equations on my whiteboard and the sleek laptop Warren's company had provided. "I've been meaning to ask," she ventured carefully as I made tea, "why did you never tell us about your background in advanced mathematics, or about knowing Warren Carlyle?" I set the mugs down and considered her question. "I tried, Catherine. When you were in high school, I offered to help with your calculus. You said your teacher's methods were more current. When Michael was choosing colleges, I mentioned MIT's applied mathematics program. He said he wasn't interested in theoretical stuff with no real-world application. When Eliza got her finance job, I tried to discuss the algorithms behind trading systems. She changed the subject to her new apartment." Catherine flushed slightly. "We didn't understand." "You didn't try to understand," I corrected gently. "You decided who I was, just an aging math teacher with an outdated perspective. It was easier than seeing the whole person." She stared into her tea. "I'm sorry. I know. But this isn't about apologies. It's about seeing people for who they truly are, not who you assume them to be." Michael's transformation was even more dramatic. The son who had deemed my career choices disappointing now proudly told his law partners about his father's groundbreaking work in quantum storage algorithms. He invited me to his country club, introduced me to clients, asked investment advice. Dad, if you need any legal help with the partnership documents, I'd be happy to review them, he offered during one of his now frequent visits. These tech deals can get complicated. Warren's legal team has it covered, I replied, watching his expression fall slightly. But I appreciate the offer. Eliza approached the situation differently, with characteristic directness. She appeared at my door one evening with a bottle of expensive scotch. "Let's talk straight," she said, pouring us each a glass. "I underestimated you, and I've been a lousy daughter." I appreciated her honesty. We talked for hours that night. Really talked, perhaps for the first time since she was a teenager. She asked insightful questions about the technology, admitting she'd researched quantum storage to understand what I was working on. "The IPO potential is enormous," she noted. "Have you considered how you'll manage the windfall?" I smiled. "I have some ideas." The formal announcement of Carlisle Quantum Storage came 3 months after that Sunday brunch. Warren insisted on hosting the event at his Boston penthouse, with my family invited as honored guests. My children arrived dressed impeccably, mingling with venture capitalists and tech journalists with practiced ease. "Your children seem lovely," Warren observed as we watched them from across the room, suddenly very attentive. "Money changes perspectives," I said without bitterness. Warren chuckled. "Speaking of which, are you still planning to go through with our little surprise?" I nodded. They need to understand what truly matters. When Warren called for attention and invited me to join him at the front of the room, I felt a strange calm. After decades of being overlooked, I was finally visible, not just to my children, but to a world that valued what I could contribute. Warren spoke eloquently about our partnership, explaining how my theoretical work from the 1980s had laid the foundation for what would become revolutionary energy storage technology. "While I was building my first companies," Warren told the crowd, "Thomas was teaching generations of students, quietly refining his mathematical models in his spare time. When I approached him last year about applying his theories to our storage problems, he didn't hesitate. And now we stand on the cusp of an energy revolution." The presentation that followed was technical but accessible, showing how our technology could reduce storage costs by 80% while increasing capacity. The potential impact on renewable energy adoption was significant enough that several journalists were live streaming the event. As the formal presentation concluded, Warren turned to me with a smile. "Thomas, would you like to make your announcement now?" My children watched with proud smiles as I stepped forward, unaware of what was coming. "Thank you all for being here," I began. "This project represents not just technological innovation, but personal reinvention. After decades of teaching, I'm grateful for the opportunity to apply my work in a new context. But with new opportunities come new responsibilities." I paused, finding my children's faces in the crowd. "That's why I've decided to donate my entire ownership stake in Carlisle Quantum Storage, valued at approximately $340 million, based on initial investment rounds, to establish the Emily Parker Foundation, named for my late wife." A murmur ran through the crowd. My children's expressions froze. "The foundation will focus on 2 initiatives," I continued calmly. "First, providing scholarships for talented mathematics students from underprivileged backgrounds. Second, funding innovative energy projects in developing communities worldwide." As polite applause filled the room, I watched understanding dawn on my children's faces. This wasn't about money. It never had been. Later, as the crowd thinned, Eliza approached me, eyes glistening. "Mom would have loved this," she said quietly. "Using math to help people. It's exactly what she always said you did as a teacher." Michael joined us, subdued but thoughtful. "I didn't understand until now. It was never about success or status for you. It was about contribution," I confirmed. "Your mother and I always believed that." Catherine completed our circle, slipping her hand into mine like she used to as a little girl. "We've been measuring value all wrong," she admitted. "I'm sorry it took us so long to see you, really see you." Warren approached, champagne in hand. "To new beginnings," he proposed. As we raised our glasses, I felt a weight lift that I hadn't realized I'd been carrying. My children weren't seeing Warren's partner or a suddenly valuable asset. Finally, they were seeing me, the father who had always been there, whose worth had never depended on dollar signs or status symbols. To seeing people for who they truly are, I added, meeting each of my children's eyes in turn. In the gentle silence that followed, I knew something fundamental had shifted. Not because of Warren or the technology or the foundation, but because we had all remembered what family actually meant. Some lessons, it seems, require extraordinary circumstances to teach ordinary truths, and sometimes becoming visible is the greatest gift of all.